Yeah, hello. This is Benny P on the mic, and today's video is about the Aziz Ansari incident and two articles I read about the situation. For context, I will link the two articles in the description down below. Let's get started. I read Barry Weiss's article in the New York Times, and I agree with the principle that there is a difference between bad sex and sexual misconduct, coercion, and assault. Bad sex is when two people are consenting to having sex and the act does not meet one or both of the consenting parties' expectations. Both people clearly understand and are willing to engage in the act, and although it's consensual, one of two loses interests or embarrassingly falls asleep mid-act, or has an accident where someone sustains an injury that needs emergency medical attention, or wasn't as talented as one made it seem, and the situation ends leaving one or both embarrassed, annoyed, and disappointed. Okay, that's all in good, but for personal context, I read Katie Ray's article in Babe about the incident with Aziz Ansari and Grace, and just so you know, the name was changed to protect the woman's identity. Before I read the article, I assumed I would agree with Weiss's takeaway that this incident was just a night of bad sex. And I don't. Not at all. If the accounts of the incident is accurate, Ansari committed sexual assault on the woman in his apartment that night, and there are reasons I would like to focus on why I feel that way. First, to counter one of Weiss's points, Grace did verbally inform Ansari that she did not want to have sex that night. Twice. And the first time, he responded by trying to coerce. Reading from Ray's article, I wasn't really even thinking of that. I didn't want to be engaged in that with him. Ansari wanted to have sex. She said she remembers him asking again and again, "Where do you want me to F you?" while she was still seated on the countertop. She says she found the question tough to answer because she says she didn't want to F him at all, but he kept asking. So I said, "Next time." And he goes, "Oh, you mean a second date?" And I go, "Oh yeah, sure." And he goes, "Well, if I poured you another glass of wine now, would it count as our second date?" Okay. So she's naked on the kitchen countertop. He is pestering her to figure out where the two of them should have sex. She hasn't moved since he's undressed her. And her response is, after he repeatedly asks, "Is next time?" Then instead of respecting her answer that she does not want to have sex that night, he manipulates the conversation back to the two of them having sex that night. That's coercion, plain and simple. But it doesn't end there. Continuing from the article. He then poured her a glass and handed it to her. She excused herself to the bathroom soon after. Grace says she spent around 5 minutes in the bathroom, collecting herself in the mirror and splashing herself with water. Then she went back to Ansari. He asked her if she was okay. I said, "I don't want to feel forced because then I'll hate you and I'd rather not hate you." She told Babe that at first she was happy with how he reacted. He said, "Oh, of course, it's only fun if we're both having fun." The response was technically very sweet and acknowledging the fact that I was very uncomfortable. Verbally, in that moment, he acknowledged that I needed to take it slow. Then he said, "Let's just chill over here on the couch." This moment is particularly significant for Grace because she thought that would be the end of the sexual encounter. Her remark about not wanting to feel forced had added a verbal component to the cues she was trying to give him about her discomfort. When she sat down on the floor next to Ansari, who sat on the couch, she thought he might rub her back or play with her hair, something to calm her down. Ansari instructed her to turn around. He sat back and pointed to his penis and motioned for me to go down on him. And I did. I think I just felt really pressured. It was literally the most unexpected thing I thought would happen at that moment because I told him I was uncomfortable. Soon, he pulled her back up onto the couch. She would tell her friend via text later that night. He made out with me again and says, "Doesn't look like you hate me." Frankly, if any reasonable man was told that by a woman in a sexual situation, he should stop. If you continue, it's now criminal. She has responded to his offers of where to have sex earlier by delaying the act to another time, and then she tells him that she doesn't want to feel forced. And then, what does he do? He instructs her to give him head? Okay, I want you to ask yourself a question. When a woman in one evening with a man at his apartment does not at any point initiate sexual contact with him, but is asked repeatedly to engage in sexual acts by him, and she verbally requests at one point to delay doing them, then after is attempted to be coerced, and then after that she is not listened to when she states, "I don't want to feel forced," but is directed to give him head, does that sound like bad sex? Yes, she did do some of those acts, but it is stated in the article that she found it difficult to directly and clearly say no to Ansari. I found it frustrating that Weiss did not mention the two specific things that Grace said to Ansari about not wanting to engage in sexual activity in her New York Times article. I feel like she omitted those two parts because it would weaken her argument. Grace's body language and two verbal attempts to stop him from trying to have sex with her objectively warrants a sexual assault charge. The definition of sexual assault is an act in which a person sexually touches another person without that person's consent, or coerces or physically forces a person to engage in a sexual act against their will. And according to the account, Ansari definitely coerces her, in which I pretty much proved earlier. But Weiss glaringly never even writes about that in her article, but attacks feminists, #MeToo, and anything else she can think of. This woman is a New York Times editor, which I assumed she was credible before I read Weiss' article. And when I did, I was angry and flabbergasted on Weiss's take. How could this be? How could she misread the situation that occurred? She doesn't seem like the type of person that would be ignorant enough not to understand the difference between bad sex and sexual assault, and I cannot be the only one who educated themselves enough about the two articles to come to similar conclusions. It just seems it was deliberate, that she used portions of the Ansari incident that suited the narrative she wanted to push in her article, instead of having the courage and integrity to bring the truth to light. Weiss's article convinced me that I would not find anything outside of her interpretations, or at the very least, I would find situations that were arguable. Instead, I found she was persuasively convincing the ignorant what they already knew, stunting them from the truth and limiting them from any progress on the matter. If Ray's article is true, Ansari sexually assaulted Grace, and I think that Weiss pulled a garbage person move. Anyone who uses their position in the media world to write things like this is dangerous and needs to be called out. This is Benny P on the mic. If you like this video and want to see more, please subscribe.